My name is Dan Purcell. I'm the president and CEO of Velocity WebWorks, and I'm here to talk to you today about some tips to do really well at Code Camp. I've been participating in Code Camps for the last several years, and I've been lucky enough to be on a few winning teams. Also, a lot of my coworkers that I work with have also won on their respective teams as well. And I'm going to share with you just a few tips that I've learned along the way that will probably help you with your Code Camp competition. First thing you want to know is about a few of the fundamental rules. First of all, you can have 1, 2, 3, or up to 4 people per team. And the teams are categorized in several distinctions. The top level is the industry professionals. Then you have a collegiate team, you have a novice team, and a rookie team. And depending on your experience level, you can compete in those various areas. But remember, if you have a team of novices but one industry professional member of your team, then your entire team moves up and qualifies and you compete at the industry professionals level. A few other things you need to know is the judging criteria. There's 5 criteria that the judges use to judge the Code Camp competition, and each criteria is weighted equally with the others. The 5 areas are uniqueness or novelty. The second is commercial viability. The third is aesthetics. Fourth is completeness. And the 5th one is level of complexity. So understanding what those criteria are will help you as you prepare for your competition. The next thing I want to discuss is coming up with a really good idea for your team to do. So you've put together a team and you want to compete in Code Camp. How do you choose a really good idea? Now, I like to pick my philosophy for picking an idea is go with something mainstream but with a twist. And this concept works really well in many other areas. For example, can you think of a popular movie where the main actor was raised by his uncle, had magic powers he didn't know he had, was trained by an old guy that gets killed? If you thought of Harry Potter, you're right. But if you thought of Star Wars, you're also right. Both were pursuing a Dark Lord in both franchises. So the idea is to pick an idea with a little twist. And that helps go really well when coming up with an idea. Other ideas for coming up with ideas, you can start interviewing, asking friends and family if there's any software or any piece of code they wish they had to help their lives go a little bit easier to manage. You can also copy an existing idea that you really like and make a clone of it for a Code Camp competition. That's perfectly allowed also. Anyway, the sky's the limit on your ideas. And as you prepare for Code Camp, I recommend you come up with as many ideas as you can. And later on, I'll talk about how you can select the very best ideas. Well, let's talk about that now, actually. How to choose your very best ideas. So, ideas come in all different shapes and sizes. But the first thing you need to remember that Code Camp is a 24-hour programming competition. So it's a game, it's a competition, and it's something that you kind of want to win. So you want to choose an idea that is something you can probably get done in about 24 hours. That being said, let me share with you some advice that I've gone through to vet my ideas and to choose what we would work on as a team at Code Camp. First thing I recommend is to create a spreadsheet. And on every row of the spreadsheet, list all of your ideas that you've come up with as a team. And then add columns for the 5 judging criteria that we discussed. And then go through each idea and rate in the box in the number 1 through 5 on how well you think that idea fits in the context of a Code Camp for that specific judging criterion. For example, if your idea is to come up with a Twitter clone, under completeness, you might rank that as maybe a 4, something you can do within 24 hours. And under aesthetics, you might rank that as a 2 because you don't think you can make a very pretty Twitter clone within 24 hours. And so on. You would fill out your spreadsheet. Then when you're finished filling that out, I recommend going back through and adding a new column called funness, for lack of a better word. Something that's exciting. What would you find as fun? Remember, a 24-hour coding competition is a long time. And you want to pick an idea that you're going to be fairly interested enough to carry your interest the entire 24 hours. So funness is an important criterion that you need to consider. Go back through all of your ideas and score based on funness, and then add up the points that you've had for each row, and then from there it'll help you guide you in determining the very best idea that you can do for your team. Now that you've understand the rules, you've organized your team, and you have some ideas and you've selected your best ideas, let's talk about a few tips on how to prepare for Code Camp in the days leading up to Code Camp. The first thing you need to understand is the rules state you can't bring any code that you've already done with you to Code Camp to continue working on. Code Camp, you have to start from zero when you begin your competition. But that doesn't mean you're not allowed to prototype and experiment leading up to Code Camp. In fact, if you really want to, you can program your entire thing prior to Code Camp, scrap it, and start over the morning of Code Camp. But the point is to take time to prepare and plan for Code Camp. Prototyping is important. Planning is really important. Although you can't take code in with you that you've written, you can use publicly available software libraries. So I recommend downloading in advance and preparing your software libraries that you'll be using for your thing. In addition to setting up your software libraries in advance, there's a lot more you should take the time to set up. For example, you should come up with a list of every feature that you need to develop and put them in priority order. Put your more core functions at the top of your list, and your not as important, or the more extra, the frilly ideas, the nice to have features at the bottom of the list, and have a plan to be disciplined to work on the most core features first. You'll be surprised that during the coding competition, how many hiccups you run into, and how many speed bumps you'll run into, and how few of the nice to have things you'll end up actually getting to. So it's important to plan ahead what features you're going to be working on first. That'll help you during the coding competition the most. Another tip too is to get all your GitHub, your chat system, and any other communication tools you're going to use as a team, get that set up in advance. Those are all things you're welcome to set up. What you don't want to do is come into Code Camp at 8 a.m. when the buzzer goes off to start coding, and you spend the next 2 or 3 hours planning, setting up your hosting, downloading your libraries, and planning. Those are things you don't want to be doing at that time. You want to get all that done far in advance. Too much time is wasted for teams that aren't planned or organized very well for those first few hours of trying to figure out what they're going to do. And you can do all that planning far in advance, and that'll help you have a better Code Camp experience. Now that we've talked about how to prepare, let's talk about a few tips for the day of Code Camp. First thing to note is when everything begins in the morning of Code Camp, everybody is downloading their software and libraries because they weren't as prepared as you were perhaps. So plan on the internet being extremely slow for the first few hours of Code Camp. So the more prepared you are in advance, you can take advantage of those first few hours and do as much work that you could possibly do and plan on a very slow internet connection in the beginning. Another thing that will help too is on the day of Code Camp, as you plan your priorities with your team members, have clear direction on who is going to be working on which pieces so that everyone can get right to work. Also, make sure you plan around if some team members are going to leave for a little while and come back. Make sure you have all that coordinated too so that the most important work gets done so one team member is not holding up another team member. One tip that I go for is we try to get most of our core features, we plan on getting them done by about 8 p.m. of the coding competition. That's about 12 hours into the coding competition. Personally, my effectiveness declines drastically around 10 p.m. So if I can get the most important features knocked out by 8 p.m., then I can plan on the not as important features or more of the polishing features for the rest of the night through the competition. Now the rules say you don't have to stay there the entire 24 hours. If you want to go home and take a nap, you're welcome to. But if you're home, you don't program from home. All the programming stays at the competition. Now that you've survived the 24 hours and you've finished your program, and they announce at 7:59 a.m. the next morning that code camp is over and it's time to stop, you'll probably be glad at that point. We're ready to begin the next most important part of the code camp competition, and that is the judging. Now, judging is, what you need to know is you're given 5 minutes to give a pitch to a group of judges. Sometimes it's just one judge, sometimes it might be 3 to 5 judges together coming to your table that want to learn about what you've done in the last 24 hours. Now, if you're like me and you've been up all 24 hours, you'll probably be a zombie at that time. So I highly recommend that you plan in advance who's going to be the pitch guy, who's going to be pitching your team. And make sure he's the freshest guy. Maybe he had a little bit of sleep, so that is somewhat coherent when speaking to the judges about what you're able to accomplish. Now, you only have 5 minutes, and that is not a lot of time. If you're planning on doing a demo of what you've built, make sure the demo is really slick so that you can get through the entire presentation quickly and show the judges what they've done. Focus heavy on the problems that you've solved in your pitch, because with such a limited time and limited attention span that the judges have, it's really important that you get in really quick on explaining why you picked the problem you choose to solve and what you've done about it. And make sure you, in your pitch, you highlight all 5 areas of the judging criteria to make it easy for them to score you based on that. And the last thing to remember too is, once the judges are finished listening to you, they probably have 10 other teams that they need to evaluate. So making sure you're speaking with all those, making sure you speak to the judge in such a way that they can remember you, so after they sit down and evaluate how you fit in with the other teams, that you've given them something to hold on to in their memory, so that you're not mixed in and blended in with all the other teams. It's really important. I've seen some teams wear the same t-shirt. They've come kind of in as a team uniform, I guess you could say. Others did something, or give a little something away to the judge, something to hold on to that kind of gave them a little reminder of what your idea was about. Something unique will really help you stand out from the judges. And now for a few last minute tips. Humans don't work very well if you have to keep your concentration for the duration of the competition. So plan on working in about 90-minute sprints. That's about a good time to 90 minutes of focus time, and then take a break. Walk around the building, go chat with some friends, whatever you need to do. But plan on going into the competition for the long haul. Another thing is drink plenty of water, get plenty of rest the night before, arrive early the morning of the competition to get the best table you can find. I personally like to choose a table against a wall so that there's fewer distractions of people walking. Instead of walking around 4 sides of the table, they can only walk around 3 sides of the table. You can, some people like to bring in their own chair. The chairs they provide are okay, but they're not the most comfortable after you've been sitting in it for 24 hours. You may want to bring a chair from home. Some bring in a desktop computer with big monitors, just something that they'll be a little comfortable in, because you will be there for a while. Another thing to remember is the code camp is a very noisy and distracting environment. There's a lot of people walking around, and there's a lot of noise just from the chatter. So bring headphones and something to help you concentrate and kind of filter out that noise so you can focus on what you do. And those are my tips. So today we covered the judging criteria, how to come up with a good idea, and various tips to prepare for competition and how to do well at the competition. And I hope you do have an excellent experience at Code Camp.